On Talking with Dr. On Talking with Dr. Donna, we focus on 4 pillars of health to help build a generational health network to end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. I created Talking with Dr. Donna as a way to educate as many people as possible and give accurate information from a trusted physician. Go to Talking with Dr. Donna and get accurate information. And then share that information with your family and friends. And if you like what you see, like my channel and subscribe. Remember, every Thursday, keep your appointment with Dr. Donna. Good evening, everybody. Woo! We did it. We made it. We are here. Thank you so much for keeping your appointment. As you know, every Thursday you have an appointment with Talking with Dr. Donna. You have an appointment every Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Whether we have technical difficulties or not, we try to figure it out and come in, because tonight is hot. We're coming in hot tonight because we've got stuff hot off the press, and I hate to say I told you so. I hate to say I told you so, but that really should be the title of this episode. I told y'all, but let's wait. We're going to get there. So for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, thank you so much for keeping your appointment. If you, at the end of the show, found that there was something valuable that you can share with someone or gave you some new information, I would really appreciate it if you go to my YouTube channel, if you're not watching from YouTube, and subscribe, and then hit that bell icon right there next to it so that you know that when we go live, which is when? Every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. The mission, why I even have a show, why we come here every Thursday, is because we are building a generational health network. And our mission is to end premature death in the Black communities in America and across the diaspora. And we do that by paying attention to 4 pillars of health. We first pay attention to our mental and emotional health, because our mind and our bodies are connected. And then our second pillar of health is we pay attention to our spiritual health, because studies show if you have a knowledge and an understanding and a belief in a higher power, no matter what that higher power is, that it actually helps you in your health. Thirdly, our third pillar of health is our physical pillar. Of course, we cannot not talk about our physical, our bodies, and how we take care of our bodies and make sure our bodies are in optimal health. And then finally, we talk about our pillar is environmental health. And that is because the food that we eat comes from the soil and the dirt of the ground. And so what our food is grown in, what the water we drink is like, the air that we breathe, what is that quality? All of those things impact our health. So we pay attention to those 4 pillars of health, because I firmly believe if we pay attention to all 4 of those pillars, starting with our children as babies, paying attention to those 4 pillars, that we are going to build up generational health, not just my generation, the generation above me, the generation below me. Because studies show if I make a change and a difference in what I'm doing, that is better, for the better, that impact affects the 4 generations, 4 generations, 4 pillars, 4 generations. You see that? So really want to make sure that we are focusing in on our goal, ending premature death. And because we want to end premature death, we talk a lot on this show about lots of things that are relevant to ending premature death. And tonight's show is no different. So tonight's show, what we're talking about is mask mandates again? Are you serious? Now, this is where I said this show title should be, I told you so. Because I said, keep your masks on because we're going to have a triple threat this winter. I had no idea how bad it would be, how bad it is going to be, but we're barely into the winter season, and we are already having surges of RSV where we're having pediatric emergencies and our emergency rooms are overrun. I have never in my 23 years of being a doctor ever had a phone call where it says, hey, we're looking for doctors. We need help. Our emergency rooms are overrun with pediatric patients. And that is because of RSV. That's our first threat. Our second threat is influenza. So we're looking at influenza tonight. And then finally, we cannot forget about COVID because COVID has not forgotten about us. So we're going to talk about the triple threats today. We're going to talk about how and why you should keep your mask on and how to protect yourself during this winter surge. And I'm going to talk to you about why it's important to have this information because we want to keep you and your family safe. So again, we're live, which means that you can ask questions. So if you have a question, please put that in the chat and I will definitely try to get to it as soon as possible. Okay, so let's talk about our winter triple threat. That's what I'm calling them, our winter triple threat. So we talked briefly about RSV. RSV is not a new virus. It stands for respiratory syncytial virus. And you're seeing the show announcement. Respiratory syncytial virus, it's not a new virus. It generally impacts our children. And we're seeing, though, this season, for whatever reason, this season we're seeing not just the younger children who are getting RSV, which is what we normally would see. We see RSV every season, and it always usually, excuse me, impacts our babies. But we're seeing kids who are older actually getting RSV. Symptoms of RSV is just like a cold, cough, runny nose. Maybe the kids won't be eating as well. Again, remember, these are, young kids, and they may not be able to say, hey, I don't feel well, but you might see other signs like they're not eating well, they're not drinking well, they're not sleeping well, they don't have their same activity level. Those are all signs that lets you know that your kids are having some problems. They're not feeling good. And so with RSV, unfortunately, there's no vaccine for it. There's no shot for it. With the exception of our kind of high-risk preemies, they get something to help them, to prevent them from getting RSV. But for a general public, for our general children and our general toddlers, there's no vaccine. So what do we do to try to help protect against RSV? We do the same things that we always do and we talk about, right? In this day and age, I would suggest keeping your mask on. That's going to be a theme. It's going to run through this entire show. Keep your mask on. That's going to run through the entire show. So if you get tired of hearing it, so sorry, but that's you're going to hear. So let's look, okay? All right, can you see my cool pointer? I have a new pointer. Woohoo! All right, so let's look at the masks. Now, we've shown you this before. We've talked about masks for a long time, and we've talked about why you want to wear a certain type of mask in order to make sure that you are absolutely protected. So we've talked about a cloth mask. If anybody's wearing a cloth mask right now, don't make me hurt you. Don't do it. Don't make me come to your house and burn every piece of cloth in your home, okay? Do not wear a cloth mask, okay? I'm not even going to talk anymore about that one. Now, surgical masks, those are the blue masks that we typically wear. Those masks are okay. It decreases your risk by about 66% of having any respiratory droplets. That's how most of our viruses are spread, right? I cough, those droplets come out into the environment, you walk by or you're standing there and they land on you and get into your mucous membranes, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, or your hands, and then I touch my eyes and then it goes in, and that's how viruses tend to enter into our bodies. So wearing a mask then prevents when I cough or sneeze from allowing those droplets to go to someone else. And when someone else coughs and sneezes, protects me from getting their droplets onto me. So surgical masks are okay. But the best masks are N95 masks. And you can really buy these anywhere now. Thanks to this pandemic, you can get them on Amazon, you can get them in the store. If you need some N95 masks, we have some here at TrueVine. Talking with Dr. Donna is always securing things for you. Thank you, Elisita. Securing masks. Oh, we're going to do show and tell tonight. So N95 mask, and the reason there's N95 and there's higher. So if you have access to an N99, I'd say go with that versus your N95, because what the number means is that the percent of particles that it filters out. So N95 is the most common. That's pretty much all you really need is an N95. So 95% of particles that are going to cause infection are being filtered out. But again, if you have access to an N99, hey, go for it. Wear the N99. And so this N95 decreases your odds of getting those droplets on you by 83%. That's a major, major decrease. And so wearing an N95 mask pretty much anytime you're outdoors or anytime you're inside of a room with a number of people, you want to do an N95 mask. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a funny story. Last night, I went to see The Colors of Christmas, which was amazing. And it was in Davie Symphony Hall, so you know it's a huge place. And I would say about 50% of the people in there had a mask on. I, of course, donned my matching mask because that's what I do. So I had my mask on, and I was talking to another person who had their mask on, and a woman walked up to us who did not have her mask on, and she said, "Oh my gosh, you two are wearing masks. Should I have a mask on?" Now the lady is probably in her early to mid 70s. And I'm looking at her in complete shock and amazement that you're even asking me if you should have a mask on in this huge concert hall with hundreds of people in the midst of winter, when we have this winter triple threat raging, that you would even ask if you should have your mask on. But she did. And I told her, absolutely, you should have your mask on to protect yourself. And I went in a little bit to my spiel. And then she asked me, well, do you have an extra one? I said, no, ma'am, I'm so sorry. But what she did remind me is from now on, I will have extra masks on me just for those folks who may not be aware that they should have an N95 mask on. So yes, we should be wearing masks still, okay? So mask mandates are back. They're back. And I'm telling you, if we don't get to masking, they're going to be back in full effect. So 3 Bay Area counties just today decided to make masks mandatory again in certain settings. So you know what that means, right? You all have been here long enough to know when it starts in one setting, if it doesn't get any better, it's going to trickle back into this population. So they are now into doing settings that have large numbers of people together. So jails are going back to mandating masks in these 3 counties. So Sonoma County, in Santa Clara County, and in Marin County. Thank you. Those 3 counties are back to a mask mandate because their transmission risk of COVID is at a medium level. Now, our counties, Alameda County, is still considered at a low level. However, we're early in our winter, and we can see, as you'll see as we talk through this tonight, you're going to see how our numbers are rising. So if we want to get those numbers down, we don't want mask mandates to come back, let's start masking now voluntarily when we're out in public, because that's going to help to decrease transmission and help to decrease the need for a mask mandate. All right, so our first of our triple threats for this winter, RSV, finished. So now let's talk about our second triple threat, which is influenza, or what we commonly like to call the flu. So we see this map of the United States, and let me just tell you, where it's dark and it's dark purple or the dark maroon, that means it's hot. High cases and high active levels of influenza. Guess what color our state is? Right here, this beautiful state right here, California, deep dark purple. Now, flu season generally goes from October until like March. Usually we start seeing higher cases in January and February, with hospitalizations rising in those months. We're already here in December, barely into flu season, and we're already having super high cases. That is concerning because it is early in our flu. So if we look at, next slide, if we look at what's going on with influenza, we want to look at what's happening with our symptoms. Like, how do we know the difference between RSV, right? We have our triple threat, RSV, influenza, and COVID. All of them are viruses. All of them are spread by respiratory droplets. So how do you know if you have the flu, or if you have RSV, or if you have COVID? So when we're looking at the differences, so the flu, it usually hits kind of quickly. Whereas RSV and COVID, usually starts with different symptoms. RSV usually starts with a cough, and then that cough gets worse. Influenza tends to start mostly with maybe chills or a fever, and then you develop the cough, right? Then, and COVID, we'll talk about when we get to COVID. But COVID these days, right? First COVID was, we've had all sorts of first symptoms in COVID, but now our first symptoms are usually with this particular strain, and where we are, starting with a sore throat, okay? So when you start feeling a little scratchiness in your throat, that could be an early sign of COVID. All right, so flu, RSV, flu, COVID, which one is it? So if you have not already done so, I need you to get your flu shot, okay? Flu is starting to rise, as I showed you on that map. We have high cases of influenza here in California. We have a flu vaccine, okay, that anyone who's 6 months and older can get, okay? So your vaccine, 6 months and older. Now this is just showing how the flu has changed from season to season. And the reason that we're showing this now is because I know a lot of you say, well, the flu shot, it doesn't work, or I don't want to get the flu shot. Well, every year what the scientists do is that they look at the flu virus and what it's doing in other parts, and what it did last year, and what were the strains that were the most common. And then it sort of looks and sees around the world what that flu vaccine, that flu virus is doing. What strains are out there? What strains seem to be getting people sicker? And then they reconstitute the flu vaccine every single year, which is why we get a new flu vaccine every year, because it's not the same vaccine. The flu vaccine is protecting against different strains of influenza A and influenza B. Different strains of those influenzas are the most common in North America, and they are trying to protect against those particular strains. So every year the flu vaccine changes, so you need to get the flu vaccine every year. I'm encouraging you, if you have not already gotten your flu vaccine, this is your wake-up call because the triple threat is here. I need you to get your flu vaccine. You can get your flu vaccine at pharmacies now, Walgreens, Rite Aid, CVS, they give flu vaccines. Of course, you can always go to your doctor's office and get a flu vaccine. But you want to make sure that you can get your flu vaccine. If you're in the area, in the West Oakland area, tomorrow you can get your flu vaccine at True Vine Ministries. 896 Newton Carey Jr. Way in Oakland will have flu and COVID vaccines available tomorrow from 12 to 4 p.m. 896 Newton Carey Jr. Way. If you have not already received your flu vaccine, here you go. Here's your opportunity. Come on down and get it tomorrow. Okay? It's free. It's free. Free 99. So let's talk a little bit about COVID. I want to go to those COVID slides, Sita. So our other triple threat. So we have RSV, we have influenza, and now we're going to talk about COVID. I know you may be tired of talking about COVID. COVID is not tired of being talked about. It likes being in the limelight. It likes hanging out. I told you from the very beginning, it's the social cousin that likes to hang out. You hanging out, COVID's hanging out too. So COVID is still here. Now, if we're looking at, let's go to the case slides. If you're looking at the cases over the last week, so here we were, real down low below this line back in November of last year. Then we had this peak real big earlier this year, and we started to see our cases start to drop, and then they went down, and now here we are in November, and the cases are coming back up. Let's do the next slide. So over the last 14 days, you can really see. Now this slide might be hard to see, and maybe you can put it up so larger on the screen, but the color codes are basically the age groups. And there's two age groups that I want you to pay attention to. That's the lighter blue, which is the less than 5-year-olds, because I want you to see, as you look at the cases, if you come over to October, at the end of that graph, you start to see that little blue line start to increase. That light blue is starting to rise higher than the hot pink and almost up to where this dark blue is. Now, why is that important? That's important to me as the pediatrician and as a mom, because that light blue line are for our children who are less than 5. So that means that our children who are less than 5, their cases are starting to increase. We've known all along that COVID infects children, it infects infants and babies and toddlers. We've seen some of the negative impacts of COVID in our immune hepatitis, where our kids around the age of 2 were starting to get this really bad hepatitis that led to liver failure, that led to liver transplants in a multitude of our babies who were 2 years old and younger. And we attributed that to COVID. So it is important to see that our children's numbers are starting to rise. We now, back then when the hepatitis was rampant, we did not have vaccines for that age group. We now have vaccines for all of our children who are older than 6 months old. So all of you parents out there and grandparents, I really want you to talk to your pediatrician or family medicine doctor about the vaccine if you have not already gotten your children vaccinated. It's really important because they're getting sick, and eventually we know that COVID impacts our young babies just like it does in our adults, where we have long COVID. Studies show that our children have long COVID. They can get headaches, prolonged fatigue, right? And they may not be able to say that they're tired, right? They just may be wanting to sleep a lot. They may not be able to pay attention and focus in school as well as a result of this long COVID. So it's important. We have vaccines now. We have the ability to help our children not get sick from this disease. So let's vaccinate our children. Can you go back to that slide? Because I want to highlight two other populations. So the hot pink, that hot pink is our 18 to 30-year-olds. That group has always been hot. That group has always had the highest number of cases throughout this pandemic, and it's not any surprise that their numbers are rising again. And then also the 5 to 11-year-olds, that's this dark blue line here, starting to rise. Again, we're seeing now our less than 5 up to 11-year-olds, those are our school-age kids. Those are the kids that are going to school who are potentially spreading COVID to the other kids and to their teachers, right? So we want to make sure that we vaccinate our kids because it's really important to try to protect them. And we want to go back to, if you have stopped having them wear their masks to school, we want to go back to having them wear their masks. Continue to talk about the importance of good hand washing and the importance of kind of trying to distance themselves from their friends, right? Not sharing utensils, not sharing snacks or treats at school, not sharing water bottles, you know, all of these things that kids like to do. We need to talk to our kids even more so now about the importance of kind of keeping some distance, wearing a mask during the school days, and making sure that they do good hand washing. All right, next slide here. So we want to look at, we're still having people dying from COVID, unfortunately. And of course, the ones who are dying the most are our elderly population, continuing to die at the highest rates. So definitely for our older population, we really want you to get boosted. And the bivalent booster is what we want you to get. All right, next slide. What are we talking about? So our death rates by race. All right, you know, this has been the same story, right? It used to be our highest rate was African American, followed by Asian Pacific Islander. But we know that Asian Pacific Islanders have had in their community also this, what I call justified distrust of not getting vaccinated. And we're seeing the results of that community still having very low vaccination rates. And so our Asian Pacific Islander and our African American are still having the highest death rates from COVID. Vaccines are important. Vaccines are important. Many of you are kind of are a little confused about which vaccine you should get. Do you still need to get the bivalent booster if you already got the booster? And the answer is yes. If you've been boosted, but it was not the new bivalent booster, it's time to get that booster, okay? And again, tomorrow from 12 to 4, the bivalent booster, Pfizer and Moderna, is available. So come on down to 896 Newton Carey Jr. Way and get your bivalent booster. It's now available for all ages, right? So when it first came out, the bivalent booster was just for adults. Now children can get the bivalent booster. So guess where my kids are going to be tomorrow between 3 and 4 after school? Hey, Trin, you're going to be getting your bivalent booster. If you have not gotten your booster shot yet, this is the time to get it. And you can do Pfizer or Moderna. Doesn't matter what you did before, okay? If you take a test, so let's talk a little bit about tests. Many of you may still have these tests at home, and I want you to have some tests, COVID tests at home. If you need COVID tests, again, come on down. Talking with Dr. Donna team is taking care of you. We have free home tests. Now, many of you might say, if you look on the back and you see right here, this lot number, it will tell you the lot number there, and it tells you an expiration date. So the expiration date on this package says August 22. Well, I think we've talked about this before, how many of our of the testing continued, the manufacturers continued to test their product to see if the preservative lasted long enough, longer than their expiration date, and it did. So many of them extended their expiration dates. So look here, you have the lot number there, you have the lot and expiration date number there on this type. So just look on your box and look to see what your lot number is and what the expiration date is. And then you're going to go to this website. And when you go to this website, it is going to tell you based on your lot number that you use off of your box. Now, don't use somebody else's box, but it's going to go to your box and it's going to tell you that that your test is extended. Okay, so when you're doing your test, do you have the website? Oh, there it is. Very, very long website. So if you just do FDA.gov, medical devices, or if you just Google or Safari, not to get in trouble with anybody's because nobody is sponsoring me. If you just go to any search engine and type in COVID expiration, home test expirations, the website, the FDA website will pop up. And that website, you go in and you put in your lot number and it will tell you when that date of that home test has been extended, okay? Does the expiration date matter? Yes, the expiration date absolutely matters. So that's why you want to take your test, find the expiration date, go to the website and see when that test, if that test has been extended. Not all tests have been extended. So you want to make sure that your particular test has been extended and to what date, okay? If you think that you're feeling ill and you have your home test and you take a test and it's negative, it does not mean that you do not have coronavirus. Go way back into the crevices of your mind. I know you remember this because we talked about it, but remember, these tests are not as sensitive as the laboratory tests. So when you go to the lab, it's picking up any type of particle from coronavirus in your blood. And so it's very sensitive. It can pick it up very small amounts. The home test needs to have a particular amount of the virus. Like you have to have built up a particular amount of the virus in your body for this test to come back positive, which is why you might have a negative test and then you go to the lab and you take a test and it comes back positive, right? Because the lab test is way more sensitive. So if you come back negative, if you're feeling sick, you have a sore throat and you have chills and you have cough and you take a test and that test is negative, what I recommend is that you go get a lab test because that's going to be definitive. If you're sick, you need to get a test for COVID and you need to get a test for flu because you want to make sure that you're not going to be spreading it to your coworkers, to your family members, right? To friends, to strangers, because you go to a restaurant and you're sick. So home test first. If it's positive, it's positive. Great, it means you have COVID. If it's negative, means that you need to take, if you have symptoms, it means that you should take a lab test to confirm whether or not you actually do or do not have COVID. Now, the importance, again, of getting the flu test, right, is so that there are medications that you can take if you're positive for the flu that helps to shorten how long you're sick from the flu. But those medications only work optimally within the first 3 days of getting symptoms from the flu. So if you have those symptoms, you go get tested, you'll know if you're positive, then you can be offered this particular medication to help shorten the time that you're actually sick from the flu. And of course, with COVID, it helps with your isolation time and knowing whether or not you need to isolate. And obviously, if you're testing positive for COVID and you feel really ill, that's when you want to go to your doctor and talk about getting the the anti-COVID medication to also help shorten those symptoms of COVID and help to decrease those symptoms so that the COVID doesn't continue to make you sick to the point where you need to go to the hospital in the emergency room. Okay, so our winter triple threat, RSV, flu, influenza, and COVID. These three viruses all can be decreased in their spread by wearing your mask. The mask is your probably second most important defense against these viruses, right? The first is to get vaccinated for the ones that we have a vaccine for, so flu and COVID. Second would be wearing a mask out everywhere you go, okay? So let's see, any questions? Do we have testing at your vaccination site tomorrow? There is limited testing at the site tomorrow. Are there tests that can tell me if it's RSV, flu, or COVID? Yes. So those tests are not home tests. So those tests you would have to take at your doctor's office or at an urgent care or emergency room, has the ability to determine which virus is actually causing your symptoms. Let's see. Any other questions? Yes, sore throat is the probably number one symptom right now for COVID. Any other questions? Thank you, girlfriend. Yes, pay attention. All right. So, triple threat of winter can be mitigated by wearing our masks. Please do wear your mask. Please make sure you share that information with your family and friends. December, we talked about, is HIV and AIDS Awareness Month. We gave some statistics last week about HIV and AIDS and how let me see if you guys are listening to me in the chat. Can someone tell me which group is getting infected with HIV the most right now? I'm going to give you a second, like Jeopardy. Anybody next to their chat can answer that question? There's a particular group that has, of all of the new infections, they have the highest number of new infections. Can anyone? I know there's a delay. Black women, yay! Not yay for black women getting more high, but yay that you all remember. So Sister Cynthia and Sanji, great job. Yes, unfortunately, our black women are getting the infections the highest rate than any other group. We talked last week about equality in our healthcare system and what does it mean. And we talked about the World Health Organization, their theme being equalize for the theme for 2022 HIV AIDS Awareness Month. And that is because even though there are a number of people like black women who are getting infected with HIV, the access to treatments, the access to even information across other parts of the world is limited. And for certain countries, they don't have access to information, they don't have access to tests, and they don't have access to treatment. So the World Health Organization has made equalize access to NAIDS their theme for the 2022 HIV Awareness Month. And I want you to make sure that you talk about this with your friends, with your family members, that any woman, anybody who's sexually active should get an annual HIV test. And you should get it regardless of your partner level, regardless of how many partners you have. You should just get a test every year because you want to just make sure that you don't have anything, okay? There's nothing to be afraid of. If you do test positive, we have great treatments right now, great ways in which to help to keep you healthy. So there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing wrong with testing, and there's nothing that you should be at all embarrassed about in getting your testing. It's just a general part of making sure that you're healthy, okay? So we want to make sure that you amplify this message. If there's anything that you learned tonight that you feel is important, amplify it. Amplify the use of making sure that people are wearing their masks. And if you have extra masks, keep one in your purse for a family member or a friend who may be somewhere and forgot their mask. So wearing your mask understanding that our cases of influenza and COVID and RSV are rising, and we need to pay attention to that. Amplify that we have booster shots. Bivalent booster is now available for all age groups, 6 months and older. So our children can get the bivalent booster. And once again, the bivalent booster is important because it's actually targeting the most common variant that's causing coronavirus right now. So coronavirus is all over. So many people that I know have coronavirus in the span of the last 2 weeks. I've known so many more people have had coronavirus close to me. Today, I got 2 notifications from the California Department of Public Health. I have that notification on my phone that said, and so I got 2 notifications that 2 different people that I have been in close contact with have tested positive for coronavirus. So it works. I have no idea who those 2 people are, but it works, and it's out there. So please amplify this message to help keep your family and your friends safe. All right, so our food of the month. Food of the month. We have been talking about our food of the month. Last month was persimmons. This month, our food of the month is mint. Mint. So we want you to start, get some fresh mint leaves and start to put it into your tea, put it into, salads, use a garnish on your plate. So many different benefits of mint. You can see here, it can help with your digestion. That's probably one of the best benefits of mint, is helping your digestion and relieving indigestion. It helps with colds. Right now, this is the best time to use some spearmint, put that mint and make some mint tea to help you decrease the symptoms of your cold. So make sure that you try to use mint in various ways this month. I'll even let you have a candy cane. That counts as spearmint, okay? But let us know how you're using mint in your recipes and what you're doing. Share it, please, on our Facebook page so that other people can get the benefit of what you're doing and how you're using mint. Okay? All right. Well, that's it for our show. Thank you so much again for keeping your appointment tonight. Remember, you have an appointment with the doctor every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. We're going to be back next Thursday, and then we're going to take a break for the holidays, and we'll be back in January. But so next week, come tune in, 6:30 p.m. Keep your appointment with Talking to Dr. Donna. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a blessed evening, and take care of yourselves. Hope to see you tomorrow at the vaccine clinic here. For death in the Black community. I created Talking with Dr. Donna as a way to educate as many people as possible and give accurate information from a trusted physician. Go to Talking with Dr. Donna and get accurate information. And then share. On Talking with Dr. Donna, we focus on 4 pillars of health to help build a generational health network to end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. I created Talking with Dr. Donna as a way to educate as many people as possible and give accurate information from a trusted physician. Go to Talking with Dr. Donna and get accurate information. And then share that information with your family and friends. And if you like what you see, like my channel and subscribe. Remember, every Thursday, keep your appointment with Dr. Donna.